once you've ingested assets into the system, it's important to organize them. And that's really what the bread and butter of these systems is. So the first step would be to auto tag. You've got to be able to, when you upload images, tag them. So this is sort of an overlap between the first section that we covered called ingest. Organize really is happening on the fly dynamically. If, like with Eyebase, we have these upload profiles, they enable anybody to say, look, I want these tags. I want them to be put in this folder. I want to notify these people when this folder is activated. All of those things should happen naturally in an automated fashion. And I should be able to make as many of those presets as I need. Whether I'm Amelie, whether I'm Daryl as the administrator telling people what to do, I could copy one and make it tweaked for the next photographer. But really, you want to be able to say, how many clicks does it take to get an image into the system properly tagged? Maybe it's just as simple as putting it on your local folder, and as that's brought in, it's automatically tagged. So that's auto tagging in a nutshell.
Now, Greg, I am new to the industry. I am doing this research on behalf of somebody else, and I see this really fancy acronym IPTC in this third checklist item under auto tag. Can you talk more into the automatic metadata extraction from IPTC?
Yeah, sure. So IPTC is the standard format by which you can add tags to any image asset, especially. Images are used a lot with this. And so there's ways to describe that image. There might be the date taken. That's a simple one, right? So that's actually just a text field. I couldn't say, give me every date within a certain range, because it doesn't understand that. So you want a system that takes that text field that you and I go, oh, that says April 4th, 2016.
Right.
We actually need to turn that into a data type. And so that little conversion process, it sounds easy, but a lot of systems don't do that. They just leave it as a text field. You want a system that cares enough about your life to do that automatically for you, so that you can actually use that in your searches, in all sorts of things that obviously you would expect to do with a tag like that. So there's international standards for photographic images. You want to be able to communicate with that, with EXIF data, with all of the standard tagging formats or metadata formats, and make sure that they all can be brought in automatically.
Great. And then we're talking about metadata formats. The next section is going to be the metadata fields. Can we help our listeners right now understand what metadata fields are really basic that they should be looking for, and which ones are creating those ultimate experiences for the users who might need them?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if you take a category of animal and you want to look at tag hierarchy, you want to make sure that you can at least start with an industry preset. So in the case of Eyebase, you can see here how Interbrand Hotel just preloaded in a set of templates that match their hotels. So in Paris, I've got the Grand Paris Hotel. In the US, I have a subcategory of New York. In New York, I have a subcategory of New York City. I should be able to just tag it with New York City here, and I should be able to do a search on the US and find that image because it's in that tag hierarchy, right? I shouldn't have to also tag it with US, also tag it with New York State, etc. You understand? Right. So that's kind of what tag hierarchy is about. You want to make sure a system can import that in, and we have some quick starter presets for you for that, because some people are like, I don't want to create it myself. Other people are like, don't touch my tag hierarchy. I know exactly how we like to organize our images. And so for the tag geeks out there, we've got you covered.
Absolutely.
Look for a system that has you covered, just like Eyebase. But that's kind of the basics of what you're looking for.
So we have to definitely go ahead and build that hierarchy out. The reality would be that we also have some tools. You want to look for a solution that either has tools that can help you build it out for you or allow you to do it on your own. It sounds like, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then as we go down that list, we've got the data transformation I talked about, using that date field as an example. Another nice thing is GPS functionality. So every phone, most cameras nowadays have that GPS functionality. As you can see on the screen, I can show you pictures all over New York that our New York photographers took for Interbrand hotels. I can show you the pictures here in Paris for all of those pictures, and you can see here's a shot of the Eiffel Tower, and you can see that it's connected right to where the Eiffel Tower is in Paris. And so these are great examples of stating the obvious in terms of that. Going back to, we talked about artificial intelligence, and just wanted to highlight the fact that if I click here on the image like this one you see, if you watch this, it's going to go out and actually pull in right from Google Vision all of the tags that it recognizes in this image. It's going to do a scan of this image and automatically tag everything for you in it. So let's do a couple of these images here, and you can see some of the results.
What a time saver. You talked about the GPS functionalities or the geofencing that exists within different technologies or DAM solutions. Can you show us a little bit about how that might be a solution, for instance, with interbrand hotels? Let's say that they need to produce some images that might be for a particular branch's brochure, how they can actually filter through and find regionally specific images for that request.
Yeah, so if you see here, we've got the images in this folder displayed by map. So now we're looking at the images visually displayed across this map. I can zoom into this area, find the right images I need, because I know I'm looking for, a shot here of the Eiffel Tower. Let's say I'm using that example.
Right.
And obviously that enables me to be able to make these selections just visually without having to go into each image and guess at it. I'm using an obvious example, but if I just needed something near that location, I would be able to just see it on this map versus having to just go through a set of image list.
Absolutely. In the past, you would have to really filter by file name and hope that you found it.
Yeah, exactly.
No way to really distinguish which city in a quick click how to do that. Now, we have multilingual tags that might play effect in this geofencing.
This is really important because you've got multiple people usually that have to see a system, but that's not the way to really build out a system. You really need what's called a taxonomy, or that tag hierarchy, to be pre-built and authorized. So if I just type and tag an image with dog, because I know the English word for dog, like you can see here in this image, this should actually come up automatically in all the different languages that the interface that we talked about earlier. So if I'm Maria, and I'll log in as her right now, and she does an image search for Perrault, I should be able to see that image of that dog. And even though Amelie took that shot, typed in chien in French, because that's what she knows, you can see here, Maria actually sees that same image.
Oh, wow.
And Amelie didn't have to go, I have to also tag this as Perrault.
Sure.
Or dog. All she knows is the word she knows. Everybody else can understand it. So that's the difference between tagging things with a bunch of names that happen to be in other languages versus true multilingual tagging, which really streamlines the process so that you don't have to know all those languages to tag them appropriately.
Absolutely. And we're talking a lot about how we're searching through tags and how we're using tagging as quite a heightening feature for our usability. But there's also a lot we can do with just the managing of files that also goes into sorting as well as searching. We have a variety of things here. What really separates the basic from maybe the more ultimate solutions here?
Every solution out there, you're going to be able to sort by the various columns that you see, and that's obvious. And you'll be able to save searches. It just depends how deep those search saves will go and how you can use them in the future. Can you look at versioning of files? Can you clean up files where you say, look, I want to clean up based on a set of rules. I just want to automatically take out versions of files that are older than 12 months, let's say, and just to keep the database automatically clean. You want to be able to do that without a lot of extra work. And so that's important to do as you manage files. I think overall, when you're looking at how bloated a system can be, sometimes it's as simple as being able to deduplicate and do bulk edits, which really kind of leads us into our next section you can see on the checklist. Am I able to simply multi-edit tags, folders? Can I merge duplicate assets? Can I detect that? A more ultimate way to do it is, can I just download all these asset descriptors and metadata as a spreadsheet and then just work in a spreadsheet the way you normally would? Can I just copy paste an entire column all the way down? Can I fill it down and just be done? Working in a spreadsheet is naturally how you can work with data really quickly. So can I just export that, make all my changes, and then re-import it, as you can see here? That's a huge time saver, because that's just a natural way to work versus always working through an interface and doing one single change at a time. I can make mass edits and bring them in, and that's what we're looking for in an ultimate dam like Eyebase.
And what a huge time saver. I know in the infancy of some of the teams I've led, we had to really find creative workarounds, if you want to call them that, in order to find ways that you put data into this spreadsheet, which goes into this CRM, which goes into this. I mean, whatever the system is, you're just putting data in multiple places, which can really hinder the ability for your team to fly through some small tasks. Digital rights management. Now, Greg, can you give our listeners a little insight? Because I always get the question, is there one way to manage rights?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are so many different ways. People always say, does your system manage digital rights? Of course it should. It's a digital asset management system. And a big part of that is availability of an asset. If you paid for a stock photo that expires December 31st, you need not to be able to use it after that. So of course it should expire it.
Right.
What if upon each use, you need to have a contract signed that relates to it, or I agree to the terms of that? Every time I download that asset, I need to agree to terms unique to that asset, different when I use a Getty image, and that one has its own contract that I need to agree to those terms and conditions. So an ultimate dam really says there are so many ways to manage those rights and so many levels of legal requirement. How are you associating, let's say, a contract with it? And that's really, we've got a quick little feature on relationships, and that really says which things relate to each other. That could be contracts related to these assets. It could also be a product has all these images associated with it. I should be able to just go and get all of those assets related to that. So relationships of assets is a whole other level of digital asset management that really sets the basic dams apart from the ultimate dams. That's an important part when you get into that, especially if you're a manufacturing company.
Right. And if I was part of the Interbrand Hotel fictitious story that we are painting here, whose shoulders would this typically fall on? And are they the only people it affects, or does it go beyond that one individual?
Obviously, you've got the legal department, but you also have the creative department that made the purchase in the first place. Sometimes that person moves on and nobody has that contract. It's nice to have that all in one spot and dynamically at the point of download. We'll get into sharing. Downloading is one way to share, and is that asset protected at that moment? That's really important. So these are all parts of managing those rights, expiring things, getting those approvals, requesting access, as you can see listed in the checklist.
I love that you say we all want them in one spot. It makes me think about the desire to have it in one spot, but yet a lot of people will work in different ways, such as on their desktop or in the cloud. And some people don't cross platforms into the cloud or into their local drive. So again, this is a nice place to really kind of re-elevate the need for like that Dropbox solution we talked about, which we are calling iSync, but being able to let any of your employees work in any fashion that they wish, which allows you to maintain the ownership and consistency of how your data is stored, is super essential. So asking into these questions so that you know that you're getting what you're asking for, and that you don't have a file sitting on someone's desktop or laptop and they've been terminated and you can't access it anymore.
That's true.
Helping them survive and thrive in the system that you're adopting is super essential.
Yeah, it's all part of organize. And I mean, I think the final step, we threw it in here because it is part of organizing. We get a lot of questions around this, don't we? I mean, it's all about what do I do when I have this bloated system that has these files that are 12 years old, and what am I going to do with these files? Well, you really need a system that can take you to that level where you're automatically setting up rules that you can trust, that when those rules execute, you're able to actually reduce your whole storage size because you're archiving, you're taking care of those files properly, and expiring assets that just aren't being used. Not every asset is important. And so managing those and rolling them out of your system, it's nice to do that without having to think of it. I hear so many clients say, I'll get to it. I'm thinking about archiving it.
I've said that before.
Yeah, it happens. And when do you get around to it? It's best to, when you set up a system, to put those rules in place so that you're ready to go.
Absolutely.
And so that really covers our whole concept of organizing. We like to say, as you've probably seen out there, we want to help you tame the chaos. And that's what a digital asset management system's about.